I'm Andy.
I'm Melissa.
And I'm Jack.
And together we're working on restoring our sailing yacht.
Some of you might think we're crazy taking on the challenge of restoring this boat and creating a life less ordinary.
And we're sure there will be blood, sweat and tears, but it'll all be worth it when we embark on our epic adventure around the world.
Well, it's a grey, miserable day back at the boat, but it's not actually raining. As you can see, pilot house roof's looking great, and what that means is no more water gets into the boat through the top of the pilot house, which is fantastic. And the hatches in the coach roof are looking great, and no more water gets in through there either. There's very little welding to do on the coach roof. All we've got to do is do the chain plates, which we can now do because the mast is down. But today's job is to start working, well, not start working, continue working on the cockpit, because of course water is still getting in through the cockpit. We've got a tarp over it at the moment, as you can see, and I've peeled that back, and there's more fabrication work to do in the cockpit. Okay, well, that patch is welded in. You can see a hole there. I'm not sure if my finger's pointing at it on the screen, but that hole there is where one of the old hinges was for the old seat lockers. So if you're wondering what that is, I'll put a little piece in there anyway. And as I say, we're modifying the cockpit coamings soon, not immediately, but soon. But the priority here is just to get the cockpit watertight, because we've got the rest of the boat watertight now, so I want to stop water getting in through the cockpit. Save having a tarp over it all the time. So next, same job as that, but on this side. That's the exact same thing, just on the other side. And as you can see, this has got part of the old hinge left there. I've got to snip that off, and there's some nasty corrosion there. Yeah, snip that out and weld a piece in there next. So to strip the paint and rust and stuff off there so I can see what I'm working with, I'm using this thing called a Terraco. Now, we've showed it on our episodes before. We're not sponsored by Terraco. They don't give us these for free, and they're very expensive. They're about £60–70 per unit, and this is for the 3-bladed one. You can get one with a single, a double, a 3, and you can get more, but I think you need special tools to use them. It's basically a rubberized pad with tungsten carbide tips in, which is absolutely fantastic for removing paint and rust. You pop it in the drill. I was really skeptical, and you need goggles. You need goggles and gloves, and you do need ear defenders because it's very noisy, but it makes a short work of getting paint and rust off. It's actually called a rotary blaster. So it's the next best thing to sandblasting or shot blasting, and as we've said before, we're not allowed to do any shot blasting or sandblasting or wet blasting of any kind in this yard. So this is the next best thing, and if you look at their product specification, the Terraco rotary blaster, it's phenomenal. Okay, cool. So I've cleaned up that area with the Terraco. I've chopped out the little bits and kind of squared it up a little. There's a little bit there I've missed. Make a template and cut a piece of steel to go in there next. So that piece is cut. Got to weld that in now. Melissa's turned up, Jack's at school. Just to reiterate, we say this in occasionally in episodes, but if you're new to the channel, Melissa and I both work full time, and obviously we've got Jack who's at school. We know a lot of you miss Jack in these episodes, and we get a lot of comments saying, where's Jack? We miss Jack. He's at school at the minute, and come the summer holidays he'll be making much more of an appearance, and we are planning a Jack special feature Jack episode coming up very soon, but we promise we'll get more of Jack into the episode soon.
We just spent a little while templating and grinding back the areas that we need to weld patches in. So Andy's down there cutting. I'm going to start cleaning this back with the Terraku, ready to get some primer on it eventually. Okay, just trying to get in the right position where it doesn't kill your back.
Yeah. A few people have commented on prepping these panels before we weld them in, and it is a good point. It's an interesting question, because if you paint the panel, then when you weld it in, of course it burns the paint off, but I suppose it's better to burn the paint off just round the weld and then repaint the weld, I guess. But so what we're doing today, we're very restricted by time, and this is one of the factors that we've got a problem. We've got to get back for Jack to come out of school. But what we're going to try and do is prep the back of these panels, at least the back of them, and paint them with red oxide, a zinc-rich primer on the back, at least. If we can get the fronts done as well, then brilliant. So we're using the Terraku rotary blasting tool, so that's a really good surface for painting on. If you haven't seen it, I've mentioned it before, but go and check out their website. And then Melissa is painting the front of these painting these panels with red oxide before we weld them in place, so that at least the most of the panel has got paint on, and then all we've got to do then is just go over the welds again. Well, all the patches are in. There's a lot of work still to do tidying up these welds. I'm not a fantastic welder. I know the welds are strong, and I know I've got good penetration, but they're not the best welds in the world, but they'll look fine once they're ground down. And it is only the seats in the cockpit. It's not like you know, the rest of the outside of the hull, which is more structural. Having said that, I'm reasonably happy with it. So what I'm going to do now is have a quick tidy up, do a bit of surface prep using the Terraku, and then get some red oxide on these panels to protect them. I've absolutely no doubt that I'm going to have to go back over some of these welds, hopefully with Adam next time he comes to visit, and tidy some of them up. And there's a few pieces where I've, you know, tacked the panel in place, and I'm not going to finish welding it today because I just don't have time. But what I want to do is get some red oxide on these panels to protect. I missed a bit. I finished painting and I missed that little patch there. I'm gutted. Still, never mind. There's loads more to do on this. Right, what have I done? As you've noticed, Melissa has gone. Hang on, let me turn around. As you noticed, Melissa's gone. She had to go and get Jack from school, and we hadn't quite finished, so I stayed here and finished up because I didn't want to just quit at that point. But the cockpit is all reassembled, and that red oxide paint is still wet. As I've said, These welds are all going to need cleaning up. Some of them are going to need finishing, some of them are not fully welded all the way along, but I wanted to get some paint on to protect the steel until the next time we're able to come back. A lot of people have said we need to do that. So what did we do to prep the steel? I used the Terracu rotary blaster, which I've showed you, which is designed for surface prep. It's designed for that, so please look it up if you think I'm using the wrong thing. So that's all done. Now, what are the plans for the cockpit? Why have I not painted it straight in the Jotun 2-pack white paint? Well, there's a lot more fabrication to do. On top of the seats, I'm going to weld a series of brackets to hold some wooden slats to make the seats more comfy to sit on, but with a bit of a standoff, because what I don't like is wood directly onto the sheet steel, because you get a build-up of moisture underneath the wood, under the timber, and it just rots away. So I'm going to build some standoffs with little mounts on, so that I can mount the slats with enough clearance underneath to be able to hose down, get that clean, get it dry, so that the wood doesn't perish, the wood doesn't get soggy and soaking wet and cause problems for the steel. And then the other thing, which I alluded to earlier, these cockpit coamings. Now, if you think about it, your winch goes on here, but all this is dead space, because your sheet lines come along the side here and round your winch, okay? Ooh, that way, clockwise. So all this area here is dead space. You can't stand in it, you can't use it. So what I'm planning to do is cut out this here, trim this off flush, and box this in, which will give more headroom in this lazarette, this side, and more headroom in Jack's aft cabin on that side. So these will become boxes. It's basically taking the level of the deck up to here and then boxing them in. It'll give a really nice mounting point for winches, and it will make the boat look cool. And yes, we have got as well some beautiful new stainless steel surround opening port lights for Jack's cabin, and I'm going to put one in the lazarette that side, because otherwise it would look silly without the symmetry. So to answer people's questions, yes, there are going to be, of course, windows in Jack's aft cabin. Right, I'm done in. I know if you are a welder, you could have done a better job than this. I'm an amateur. I am not a welder, I'm not a fabricator, I'm not an engineer. We're just a family trying to make a boat out of nothing by getting some steel and welding up this tatty old thing and trying to bring it back to life. I know that you could probably do a better job than this. Well, you definitely could if you're a half decent fabricator. So my apologies to all the proper engineers and marine engineers and fabricators and welders out there for the appalling mess that I've made of this. But it's strong, and it shouldn't leak and shouldn't let us down. And I'm sure that if you did it, it would last 40 years, and in me doing it, it might last 10 before it needs doing again. And that's okay. In 10 years time, I'll do it again. So yes, apologies to the proper engineers out there, but we're doing the best job we can. Right, I'm going to pack up and I'm going to go home. I'm starving and I'm thirsty and I'm filthy dirty, and I'm at work tomorrow, so bye for now.